Hey everybody, it's Crystal Hurst with Bramlett Residential, and I wanted to make a quick video today for you, specifically regarding the Leander real estate market, summing up 2023 and then also going into 2024. So you may have gotten my market update email from last week regarding the whole Austin metro area. If you're signed up for those emails, I hope you enjoyed that. But as you might know, Leander and any smaller market really is hyper local. So since I do a lot of business in Leander and I have a lot of people who I talk to in Leander, I wanted to make this video specifically about this area to help kind of go over what may be different from those statistics that you previously saw, or if you're not signed up for those emails, just give you some information about what we saw in 2023 and what to expect going forward. So first, as a little 2023 wrap up, I wanted to look at how many homes were sold in 2023, what the average price point was in Leander, and then also how much of the market was taken up by new builds, since we know that Leander has a very high percentage of new build homes. So let's get to the data here. So in 2023, there were 1,743 homes sold in Leander, and that represents a negative 16% change from 2022. So what that means is that there was a lot less activity in the market. It means fewer people were buying and selling homes. And we look at that year over year, so that means December of 2023 compared to December of 2022, going back for the rest of the year on both of those. So it wasn't super surprising. We know that this was a slower year. It felt like a slower year, but 16% is the magic number there. Then when we look at the price point, the average price point for homes sold in Leander in 2023 was $583,197. The median price point was $519,613. And when you look back comparing this to 2022, this is actually a 1% increase. So we knew that things stabilized approximately around February to March of 2023 from this drop that we had been having. And sure enough, that's what shows up on the data. Things were pretty stable, just a little hint of an increase. So that's a positive sign going forward. And then the last thing that I wanted to look at was how much of the market in Leander is taken up by new build homes versus resale homes. And this part was really interesting. So I'm going to start with 2022, 2 years ago. So when I looked back at 2022, there had been 2,079 homes that sold in Leander, and only, where's my number here, 443 of those homes were new build homes. 443 out of over 2,000. Now, looking back into 2023, so last year, we had fewer homes sold, like I mentioned, 1,743, but 525 of them were new builds. So what that represents is a 9% jump in market share going to new build homes. Now, why was this? A huge portion of this is that the new build homes are these big builders and they could afford to give incentives to the buyers. So buyers were going and buying new build homes and they were getting lower interest rates, obviously a really big plus. They were also getting closing cost coverage and sometimes what they called flex cash that you could use for either of those or for a price reduction. And that's pretty hard to compete with if you're a smaller individual resale seller, right? If you're just a private person selling your home, you can't really be giving away, $25,000 to $30,000 in incentives. So it's normal and expected that we saw this increase in the number of new build homes taking over the market. But it is something to keep in mind if you do plan to sell your home, that you need to price accordingly and think about what you can offer a buyer that's going to compete with these new builds. So interesting data there. The last thing that I wanted to do was to look at how these numbers compared to the Austin metro area as a whole. So did Leander fare better or worse in 2023 than the 5-county Austin metro area? So here's what it showed. When we looked at number of sold homes, it was almost exactly the same. So we saw this big slowdown of activity all the way across the board. Leander did not fare better or worse than the average for the Austin metro. Now, when we looked at price, this was a pretty minor, but Leander actually did fare slightly better than the Austin metro area. So I mentioned that between 2022 and 2023, Leander saw about a 1% price increase. And when we looked at the metro area, they only saw about 0.3. So we've got about a 0.7% difference there in favor of Leander. So good to see we're holding our value, especially compared to the rest of the metro area. That's always a positive. Now, a couple of notes on this. There is a building moratorium going in Leander. It's not so much as a building moratorium as a community and subdivision approval moratorium. So the subdivisions and communities that are already approved for building can continue to build. However, there is a pause on new communities being approved and being approved to start building in Leander. So that should potentially put a little bit of a slowdown on that market share that we were seeing of the builders. And as interest rates start to improve and get more competitive, as market starts to pick up again, those incentives that they've been offering tend to decrease. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more of an equalization between the new builds and the resales. Now keep in mind, the resales are still making up a bigger portion of the market either way, but it'll be a lot easier to sell a resale if those builders do away with those incentives and have fewer homes available. All right, so that's the wrap up for 2023. Let's talk about what we expect to see in 2024. So the most important thing is rates, right? And economic conditions. Overall, the Fed has forecasted that they will cut these interest rates that have been way up high several times this year. There's a small chance that they get cut in May. There's a very solid chance that they get cut in July. So as we move forward throughout the year, we're likely to see these rates start to decrease. And as soon as the Fed cuts those rates, mortgage rates generally follow pretty quickly. So what this means is that there's going to be more favorable buying conditions as the rates go, but you do need to keep in mind that as soon as these buyers start to jump back into the market, that makes competition go up. So I know that I personally have, I think, somewhere between 8 and 12 buyers who are just waiting for rates to go down. And as soon as they do, they plan to jump into the market and buy. I know if I have those clients just waiting like that most realtors in Austin also have those clients. So you can imagine how many buyers are going to be jumping into this buyer pool as soon as the rates decrease significantly. And what does that mean? That means prices go up. And that is exactly what's forecast here. So we forecast that we start to see the rates going down. We start to see more buyers jumping in, and then we also forecast that by the end of the year, we will have seen a more significant increase in home prices compared to last year from January to December. So if you're trying to time the market, you need to be a little bit careful here. We always say, what's the best time to buy a home? Well, it's when you need a new home, because you can try to time this, but it can be a very tricky game to do that, and you might end up losing out. So you may take a little bit higher rate. You could wait till they start to drop a little bit and then go ahead and buy. Maybe you get a little higher rate than somebody who waited longer, but that person might also get a higher price, and you can't refinance out of a higher price. So just some things to think about there. Other notable things, we expect overall that 2023 is a slower year compared to this year. So we expect to see market activity increase fairly significantly this year. Not going to be a crazy year like it was in 2021 or even early part of 2022. However, we do expect to see a busier year overall than last year. Now, I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'm going to jump ahead and just go straight to how this affects you. If you are a buyer, if you're thinking about buying a house this year, again, don't try to time it too carefully. If you're trying to time it, down to the exact, like this is the lowest point of the rate right before the prices start to go up, you're very likely to miss it and either get stuck with a higher price or a higher rate. So the higher rate might be the better option. It depends on your circumstances, but you can refinance a higher rate. You cannot refinance your purchase price. So keep that in mind. But you should start to see a little more inventory as these rates go down and sellers realize it's a better atmosphere to be selling in. So worth keeping an eye on. If you have questions about that specifically, I'm happy to talk about timing it. And then if you are a seller, this should be a much better, easier year to sell than last year. And we all want to keep in mind, buyers and sellers, Austin is a very seasonal market. This is actually the first year in 2023 since 2019 that we've seen a normal seasonal pattern. And this looks something like this. So you'll see on this chart, it starts pretty slow at the beginning of the year. We start to see a pretty significant pickup going into the late winter and early spring. And then pending contracts are at their highest. So that means the most homes are going under contract. between March and May. So if you are a seller, this is still going to be your prime time. Rates might extend this a little bit, but Austin is still very seasonal. People go away during the summer and they don't want to shop for homes during the holidays. So keep this in mind. If you are a seller, you're likely to see more favorable conditions than you did last year. And I would recommend getting your home prepped and ready to go to get on the market by April at the latest. So if you'd like to talk about this, if you have more questions, you'd like more specific information, or maybe something specific to your situation, happy to talk to you about that. Happy to give you some more detailed information. You can reach me by commenting on this video. You can also reach me here, email or phone. And if you'd like market updates that show specific closed home prices for your neighborhood right around your house, you can scan this QR code and sign up for market updates. That will send a weekly email straight to you with data that shows the sold prices. That's not available on realtor.com or on Zillow, any of those platforms. And it will show you the closed home data for your specific neighborhood. And those will keep coming in as a home sells. It'll tell you what it sold for. So if you are kind of eyeing the pricing for the spring or thinking about moving but not sure yet if it's the best situation, that's a nice little way to kind of check in and see where you're at. So again, reach out to me anytime. Thank you so much for watching the video today. I hope it was helpful, and I can give you data like this for any market area that you're interested in. Like I said, I do a lot of business in Leander, but if you're in Georgetown, Liberty Hills, Cedar Park, anywhere else, I'm also happy to pull this kind of data for you. So thanks again for watching. Have a great night, and I hope to talk to you soon.